guys, how's it going? Welcome to this week's recap video. We've had a really beautiful week of weather here. It's been such a cold, long spring. I mean, can you even say it feels like spring yet?
Yeah, almost like a, not eerie, but just odd.
It is very odd, but so needed. So
yeah.
It's just wonderful. It's currently sprinkling outside right now, and it doesn't look like it's going to stop.
Like, doesn't it feel like we'll just never have summer?
Right now?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Because it just
I know
feels,
it's coming.
It feels like we're so late. Like, we're just weeks late at this point.
No spring crops in the ground.
Yeah.
And only a couple of spring planters done, and I have to tent them. Well, I didn't tent them last night for the first time, but we've got 3 nights now. Yesterday only said 1 night in the 20s, and now there's 3 nights in the forecast in the 20s. So I'll tent them those nights. But you know, what can you do?
Nothing.
Yeah. But it's really... I really enjoyed it. You guys, today's video is sponsored by Proven Winners and their new perennials for 2023, which we will talk about in just a few minutes. So let's just jump right into the first video, which was what to do with bulbs and pots when they're done blooming and thinning seedlings. So that's one of the things that I was able to accomplish this spring because we have extra time right now. When I plant bulbs in containers, I always intend on planting them out in the landscape, and it rarely happens because we are so busy by this time of year. It's just not something that's worth fitting in. So they usually end up at friends' houses. They go somewhere. If they're not, put in our garden. But we had time. All those hyacinths that we forced and we enjoyed in the Hartley, in and around the Hartley, we planted out in the landscape. So I just kind of talked through what you can do with bulbs and pots, because even if you didn't force them yourself, oftentimes you can buy bulbs, daffodils and tulips that have been grown on. You can buy them at the garden center and put them in your spring pots. Then what do you do with them afterward? Are they, do you have to toss them? Can you plant them? So I went through that, and then we just thinned out some seedlings, which I think I'm nearing the end of thinning.
Are you?
Yeah, there's a couple of trays. Like I can see our trays of hibiscus, the rosella, and the mahogany splendor. I want to separate those, but everything else has, I think, been thinned.
Do you ever feel like a murderer as you go through and thin things?
No. In fact, I swear, the next day you look at that tray and the ones that are left are like, yes.
Yeah.
Finally. And you can tell that they, all of a sudden, they look more comfortable.
So you're telling me Thanos was right?
Oh, jeez. No. Okay. Monique said, is there a potential that the seedlings you thinned out will still grow because you left the roots intact in the cell? Sometimes. I notice it mostly on our snapdragons. I'll notice like little leaves try to pop back up, and I just pinch them off with my fingers. And the more you do that, they'll just eventually wither away. LaDawn Smith said, thanks for another great video. We can't get tulips to come back well either. If you want to save the bulbs to force in pots again, what would you do? Would you leave them in the pot until the foliage dies all the way back? Then what? You would kind of just treat them like how you would if they were in the ground. So yeah, you'd wait till the foliage dies back, you'd cut off the foliage, and then you could leave them in those pots if you want to, or you can take them out of the pots, but you do want to store them in some kind of a medium that you can retain some kind of moisture. You wouldn't be able to take the bulbs out and store them like in a bag somewhere until you're ready to force them again because they get dried out. So you could keep them in pots and just make sure to water them every once in a while, especially during the hot summer months. When they're out in our landscape, you don't see them in the summer, but they're getting water right along with everything else out there on a very consistent basis here anyway, because we have to irrigate consistently, except for right now.
Yeah, not in the spring.
No. Shirley said, I've been told to pinch the old blooms off so the bulb doesn't waste energy creating seeds. What's your opinion? Yes, deadhead those bulbs. For sure. Coda Kate said, if the bulbs have been inside and protected, such as the ones in the Hartley, is there no need to harden them off before planting them outside before your last frost date? Bulbs are so tough. I mean, you could spend a little bit of time hardening them off, but you're burying them under the soil surface. We're not frozen at all anymore. Even though we're getting into the 20s, the soil's not freezing, and it is starting to warm up a bit because we are getting into the 50s some days.
Yeah, even the high 50s.
We have a day, was it like close to 70 on the forecast? Like 66 or something? Which will be awesome. Anyway, so it's not going to hurt them at all. I mean, the leaves might kind of wither a little bit faster if you don't harden them off, but I don't think there's any problem with it unless it was super cold still. Bruins fan said, for the bulbs that have been in the ground for a year or so, when and how do you fertilize them? Thanks for always sharing your knowledge. You could fertilize them immediately after they're done blooming. Typically that's a really good time because that's when the bulb is actively like storing up energy to get ready for the next year's bloom. Jeannie said, I'm so jealous of your soil in the south garden. What?
It actually, it's not that bad.
It's
really.
Getting better. It is getting better. There are areas, it's the hard pan.
Yeah.
There are a few areas where you can dig down like this far, and then it's so hard to dig with even a shovel. Like, it's hard to dig holes out there. Was it always that nice and airy, or have you done a lot of soil amending? I live in the Seattle area, zone 8B, and my soil is either hard pan or clay. A couple of years ago, I added compost and rototilled a flower bed. The very next year, I could hardly dig a hole. It's consistency. I mean, that is the biggest key for soil health, is continually adding in that organic matter. Compost, you know, we mulch with compost now instead of using like standard mulch. And then amending with whatever your soil composition is. It's a good idea to get a soil test so you know what pH you're dealing with. But for us, we have to do, like, we can do gypsum, we can do humate, soil activator. We can do soil acidifier for us because we're so high pH. What else do we add in there? I mean, the regular fertilizers, but
iron, things like that. We do either chelated iron or regular iron.
Yeah, but it's just being consistent and continually doing it, and then you'll see results. Judy said, love how you dig all those holes and take time to plant all those bulbs for the second time, and all the seeds you plant and take great care of them. Question, I got the tall snapdragons instead of the shorter kind. Can I start pinching them back when they get about 4 inches tall and make them bushy? Yeah, you can pinch snapdragons, and you do, most people want to pinch them because you'll get a much more well-branched plant. You'll get a lot more flowers. That doesn't mean your snapdragon's going to stay a whole lot shorter. The ones that want to get taller will still get pretty tall even if you pinch them. So our snapdragons, they're about 4 inches tall right now, but they're not ready to be pinched. Usually you want to wait until there's like 2 or 3 sets of true leaves going on, and then you pinch them back. Joy said the dirt mound that Benjamin didn't want to leave. What is that? Is that made up of used soil from potted plants? Some, and around the property, some. I've always kept amending my soil. Are you supposed to toss it, and what will become of the mound of dirt? You don't have to toss dirt. The only time that I will toss soil is if we've had like those juniper topiaries that we had flanking like in front of where we park. They were
spider mites
covered. Like, they were so covered it was kind of scary with spider mites, and we just carefully tented the whole plant with garbage sacks so that when we transported the thing to the dumpster, it wouldn't shake spider mites off everywhere. And so we carried the whole thing in the pot to the dumpster and then slid the whole thing out into the dumpster. That's the only time that I will like actually throw soil away, is if it's heavily infested with something, because you go spread that out somewhere, those spider mites are like, yeah, you just gave me a new home, something else to infest. So you don't want to perpetuate problems like that. And the dirt pile, it has come from multiple things. I think it's made up of the root ball of that maple tree, the big maple tree.
Oh yeah, I think it is maybe.
We had installed, and then it started to die, and we had it uninstalled.
But I think Chad just was moving dirt around because he's leveling out that whole area.
Yeah. He's due to come back. Things just need to dry out a bit.
Yeah.
He's due to come back and do a little bit more leveling so we can put our high tunnels up in the back of the property. But anyway, yeah, so that has just been a collection of, different projects, and it will go away. Chad will use that to kind of help level out the back of the property. B. Guzmant said, aren't the bulbs going to rot because of the constant watering from plants nearby? No, they just don't. I just don't think that we get enough moisture here rain-wise unless it keeps up in the summertime for things to rot.
But with drip, like the drip system?
Yeah, no. I mean, they have drip around them all summer long because we have to run drip around them to keep them alive even in the spring months usually. So, I mean, if you lived in an area where you got tons of rain and you were, constantly moist, you probably wouldn't even need to be running a drip system, one. So, I mean, if you ran a drip system on top of the rain that you were getting, they might rot. Ellen said, I have a large grouping of daffodils in the ground that need to be moved because a new boxwood planted last fall is crowding them. When is the best time to transplant in-ground spring blooming bulbs? Right after they're done blooming is a great time to do it. Or like right after their leaves have fallen, like died back, and you're getting ready to clean them up. I actually think that's the best time. Wait, let them chill, bloom, deadhead them, let the leaves sit there until they start to yellow and die back, and then at that point dig them up and move them, remove the leaves, the spent leaves, and then go plant the bulb somewhere else. All right, guys, so like I said, today's video is sponsored by Proven Winners and their new line of 2023 perennials. Now, I'm not gonna go through all of them, just a few that I'm very excited about. They always have a really fun lineup of new plants coming out from year to year. But two of the 6 I'm gonna share with you today, I actually have in my garden already. I've had a chance to try them out last year. So the first one is meant to be Queen Nectarine Hyssop. This is an absolutely beautiful perennial with kind of the nectarine peachy colored blooms on top of silvery sage green leaves. They are in bloom all season long. They attract pollinators. They're drought tolerant. They're just a really wonderful perennial. There's also another one called Royal Raspberry that I love that's got pink blooms, and the leaves are a little bit more of like almost a bicolor green and purpley red. Then there's a shade-loving dark side of the moon astilbe. Now astilbes in our area, and I think in most areas, they do like a very moist location, so that's something to keep in mind. But this one has deep, rich, chocolate brown colored leaves, and then it shoots out bloom stalks that have kind of these raspberry colored buds, and then they open up to these rosy purpley pink flowers. They're just so pretty, and they're wonderful for cut flower arrangements. And then there's an echinacea called the Fuchsia is Bright. Echinacea is one of my very favorite sun-loving perennials because of how low maintenance they are. They don't require deadheading. You can deadhead them through the season if you want to, but I prefer to leave my spent blooms there so that we can have see them as winter interest. Pollinators love them. They are deer resistant, and this one just has bright pink blooms, and it's a very kind of dense looking full variety. Then there's the Primo Pistachio Ambrosia Heuchera. I love that name, the Pistachio Ambrosia. It's got really bold chartreuse green leaves. They're just very, very bright, like a clear chartreuse color. Pink blooms, also good for cut flower arrangements, both their leaves and their blooms. And they're just a really nice perennial to put in a shadier spot. They like kind of shade to part shade, and they just pop with how bright their leaves are. Then a hosta called Above the Clouds, which creates quite a presence in the garden. It grows 2 feet tall, upwards of 5 feet wide. But the leaves on this one, they're that really silvery blue, really bold. They kind of have like a little bit of a puckered appearance. And then they send up lavender blooms in the summertime that the hummingbirds really like. But the blue colored hostas are just such a gorgeous, I mean, imagine the blue hosta with the chartreuse heuchera and the dark side of the moon astilbe all in the same spot. That would be awesome. And then add in a pink and blue lungwort. That's the last plant I wanted to share with you today. It's got green leaves, kind of a deeper green. They're a little bit longer, more slender leaves with silver speckling. And I grow lungwort because they are tough plants for the shade. And I love the silver variegation on their foliage, but they also have blooms in the late spring that are pink and transition into a blue color. So at most points during its bloom season, it looks like it has 2 different colors of bloom on the plant. They're so pretty. They are resistant to deer and rabbits and attract all the pollinators. So thank you, Proven Winners, for sponsoring today's recap. Next video is planting sempervivums and sweet peas. It was kind of another morning, just like it looks like outside right now, kind of rainy and drizzly and cold. So I needed to get sweet peas planted, and I had a bunch of sempervivums that Mountain Crest Gardens had sent out. So I thought that would be a perfect project to get done. Almost all of the sweet peas are up. I just took the domes off of all but one of the flats last night. So I'm very excited about that. And then the sempervivums look so pretty. I used an old rusty container that I got out of my grandparents' garage when we were cleaning it out. And it's fun to kind of use those pieces that have a little bit of memory or memories connected to them. And I didn't do the sempervivum arrangement like I normally do my succulent arrangements. It was really kind of it was kind of nice. Like I didn't do any mounding of the soil. I didn't do any like scrunching of plants together. Everything just has room to just chill there. Russell was laying on it yesterday. Russell and Cheddar have been laying on everything in there. I don't know what the deal is this winter.
They're just testing your patience.
I guess so. Like they're not like chewing or digging or anything like that. They just like go find something that looks soft to lay on, and that's what they do.
I wouldn't think succulents would be all that soft to lay on, though.
No, he was just chilling up in the pot yesterday. And then I've had to take him off the dahlia tubers that I'm trying to pre-sprout in there several times. I actually have chicken wire on top of them now. I just like gobbed up a bunch and put it on top so they'd stay off, which I have noticed a little bit of activity on our pre-sprout dahlias, which is good. Garden by Christine said, great video as usual, thank you. Did your kids use the grass as much as you had hoped? Yes. Will you do it again? I don't know that we'll do it again. I like to do different projects all the time. But
it was definitely worth it this year.
It was definitely worth it. Yeah.
Samantha loved it. She would want to go out to the greenhouse and do bubbles.
Yeah.
She's moved on from the greenhouse. Now it's the chicken house.
Yeah, she wants to spend
every
lots
day. She
of
wants
time.
to be in the chicken house.
Yeah. It's funny too because she gets like real concerned because Beverly doesn't want to eat mealworms off the ground. She wants to eat them out of your hand, but not anybody's hand, just my hand. I don't know if it's because I raised her from being a really young chicken. Anyway, so I'm feeding her, but sometimes she'll like accidentally peck at my skin, you know, and I'll be like, ow. And Samantha is like, Mama, you okay? You okay, Mama? And then she'll get up in my face. You okay?
Yeah.
It's really cute. She really loves the chickens. Sarah said, do you ever use soil blocks? Do you find that method useful when growing from seeds? You know, I can see the definite pros of soil blocking. It's not something that super interests me. It's kind of like composting. I'm like, oh. I've so set up with my trays already. You know, I've got all of the Growy seed starter trays. I use a lot of just standard 11 by 22s with 6-packs. And those 6-packs, they're like a thin plastic, but they last forever. They last forever. I use the same ones every single year. And once you have your setup like that, it's just like I'm already set up.
Sure.
I don't really need to soil block. I have a soil blocker. It's right there. I can see it. But I don't really want to, never say never. I might try it just to try it one of these years.
And then you'll love it.
And then maybe I'll love it. I mean, who knows? But sometimes, I don't know, why mess with a good thing, right?
Yeah, what you're doing is working. So.
Yeah. Maggie said, I've always struggled with starting plants from seed. My seed trays always mold. What am I doing wrong? Too much moisture, too much humidity. Putting a layer of vermiculite on the top does help, but if you leave your humidity domes on too long, or your heat mat, if you're using one, on too long, or if there's the humidity in the room is too high, it can cause mold pretty quickly. In fact, we have it off right now, but we have a dehumidifier in this room. We have a very dry climate typically, but during seed starting season, this room is just like, it's like you walk in and you can just feel the moisture in the air. So we run that to help take some of that away. And then I'm pretty diligent about taking humidity domes off. And once the seed trays have almost all the way come up, that's when the dome comes off. However, I started, a bunch of seeds in those paper pots from gardeners not that long ago. Didn't dome any of those. Almost all of them are up, except for my flat of cherry caramel phlox. This is my 3rd time trying it, and I think I'm done. I think it's not worth it. There's a lot of other plants out there. I don't know, maybe it's just going to take its time germinating, but like everything else is up, and that flat is just like nothing. Not even like a whiff. And I look close, like get real close to try to see if I can see anything coming up, and nothing so far. Carol said, I can't seem to find Biotone starter fertilizer in my area. Can I use Planttone in its place? You sure can. I'm going to keep checking back though. If you can find Planttone, I wonder why Biotone isn't something.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that Biotone is as popular as some of the other ones. I know Hollytone is like the main thing that they do, and then Planttone is probably number 2. I don't know this from fact. I'm just guessing. But yeah, Biotone, I think, it's just not as big of a seller.
That's crazy to me. Fungus gnat. Still dealing a little bit with fungus gnat. It's not bad though. Like just one here or there. Yeah, I don't know.
I really wouldn't worry about it. Like all the blends are like fairly similar. If you have one, if you have tomato tone, you could seriously put tomato tone on like some perennial that you put in the ground.
Yeah, and it'll be happy.
And it will be better off than not using anything.
Right. Let's Talk Gardening with Robin said, how long do you let the lettuce grow before you start cutting on it? I seeded some last week and it's already sprouted. It depends on the variety, and it also depends on if you're wanting it to be cut and come again, or if you're wanting it to head up. So oftentimes you can cut the baby leaves of lettuce and the plant will continue to grow, so you can cut multiple times. In this case, I just wanted to see what would happen and how long it would take to get the lettuce to head up, especially because we were growing it in a greenhouse in the middle of winter. I started those seeds right at the end of the year, or beginning of January, I can't remember, right in there. So they've been in their trays for 3 months. They did have a moment where I took them out and repotted them and buried especially the iceberg deeper, because they had created like this little stem. It's so weird. The butterhead lettuce stayed nice and like compact and low to the soil, and the iceberg had a nice little plant on top of its stem, so the stem was making the plant like flop over, and they looked really gangly, and I thought, oh, I don't know. Anyway, we buried them deeper and they're doing amazing. So yeah, it just depends.
Have you ever had the desire to be like a market farmer?
Market farmer?
Yeah, well, like you grow things like that. And
like take them to a stand or something?
Or sell to restaurants or...
No.
Really? Just for your own enjoyment?
Well, or just to give away, just to like have friends and family come grab them. Or, we donate some things to the food bank. Or I take things down to the garden center, like the cabbage that one year. I think we had like 60 some heads of cabbage, and we just put it in a big bin and said free cabbage. Sure. That I enjoy that part, but I don't think I would like the stress of like having my income come from that, because there's so many different factors, Sure. When you're dealing with perishables, and you're also dealing with weather, and you're dealing with insect pressure and all of those things.
That's one nice thing about what we do is that like even in failure, we can still make content.
Yeah,
showing
you the failure.
So like if something goes wrong, it's like, well, this is just what it is. We're going to start over. But it's not, you know, as long as people are, you know, watching it, then we'll be okay.
Yeah. Laura said, after the bulbs are done beside the Hartley, what will you put there? Annuals? Probably this year we'll do quite a number of annuals because there's a lot of space. I haven't quite decided exactly what I want to do in areas, but I do have 2 gorgeous Julia Child rose trees, rose standards, tagged down at the garden center. They're big. They're like planted. They're probably my height, and the tops are just massive.
I've never seen a rose tree blooming. I've only seen them early in the spring when the garden center gets them in.
Oh, really?
You know, and they're just kind of sticks.
Oh, you're in for a treat.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're really pretty.
I imagined for that space that it would be very like English cottage garden.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what it'll look like in the end. I do have so I bought 1 sparkling Sprite crabapple when we went down and did some tree shopping, and then I went back and marked 3 more. Because I thought, well, we could use those 4 sparkling Sprites because they're a very small crabapple. We could use them out around the circle in the cut flower garden, or we could use them in the 4 beds behind the Hartley, which is kind of the same flavor as what I did in our last garden, in the townhouse garden with the 4 crabs. I don't know. We just kind of let things evolve and use annuals until we do.
Yeah.
The next video is how I prune my hydrangeas and hellebores. I think the latest I've ever done that. Ever.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I feel like I usually tackle that kind of stuff February or very beginning of March. But anyway, we went through the arborescens or smooth hydrangeas, panicle hydrangeas, and then hellebores. And things are starting to look like they're maybe putting on some growth.
Is that just like wishful thinking?
It's just so weird. It is so weird. Like, it's been a lovely spring and I wouldn't change it. But like our forsythias, the buds they're starting to swell, but they're not even close to blooming. The only bulbs we have color on are still snowdrop, scillas, and winter aconites. That's it. And those are usually like a February item for us. And then by now we're usually enjoying daffodil blooms. And so it might be really fun if our daffodil and tulip seasons collide more.
Yeah. The only problem is that you want tulips and daffodils to come early enough to where then you can plant in May. You can plant all your annuals and you're not kind of like overlapping any of that.
Yeah.
Like you want all the tulip foliage to have died by then.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if you're ready to plant annuals, you kind of have to cut the tulip foliage back when it's green if you're going to plant your annuals.
Or you just have random leaves sticking up out of your annuals. I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Rachel said in previous videos, you said that you prefer to use rose tone on hydrangeas, but here you said to use holly tone for all your hydrangeas. Which one is better for hydrangeas? They're equally as good for hydrangeas, honestly. We used to use holly tone exclusively on hydrangeas, and it's more of a, like for acid, right? I mean,
it's for acid-loving plants.
Yeah. And then we started to use rose tone because Proven Winners Color Choice Shrubs, that's what they were using on their hydrangeas. So I thought, well, I'm going to start using that. The
answer to the question is that we use both.
We do.
I think even this year we used both. I think that we used a majority of holly tone on our hydrangeas. It doesn't matter.
No.
Like they're both made for woody shrubs.
Yeah. Wanda said, do you tie up your hydrangeas? Mine get so floppy. No, I do not tie them up. You know, a lot of the newer varieties, like the Incredible versus the older Annabelles, they have been bred to have stronger stems. You also do want to make sure that you are pruning those types properly. You want to cut them back by about 1/3 every single year. You want to maintain, which helps them maintain a much stronger network of branching down below. If you don't prune them and you just let them get long, I mean, those branches just aren't going to be as strong and they're going to want to flop over under the weight of the blooms, especially if the blooms get wet from rain. So yeah, I mean, it might be a situation where you just need to take after them and give them a good prune job, or maybe consider replacing them if they're an older variety with something that maybe is a little bit stronger. Lori said, have you tried OxiClean on your siding? I swear between it and the Magic Eraser, I've been able to remove so many stains that were basically dye. I don't know if we've actually tried OxiClean. In the video, I'm like, name the cleaning solution. We've probably used it. I don't know if we have used that, but we've used so many. The limelight hydrangea blooms stain the side of our house brown. It looks so bad. Yeah. So bad. But maybe that's something we'll have to try. Thank you for the suggestion. Karen said, do you clean your pruners when you start working on different plant species? No. The only time I clean them is between fruit trees, to be completely honest. I will clean them like on a routine basis, like a couple times a year. There you go. Lola said the garden is looking fabulous already.
Are we looking at the same garden?
Really? When shall I cut back my hellebore if they are evergreen in my climate? Well, they're supposed to be evergreen. If the leaves look good, just leave them alone. If they look tattered or brown or, kind of sad, sorry, excuse for leaves, you can cut them back, usually in the early spring. Also, whatever happened to the big white and rust-colored vintage gate arch from years ago? Do you still have it, or did I miss something? We still have it. Erin, don't look at me like that. My mom was like angling to put it in her garden, and you want me to get rid of it because you never liked it. But I love it.
It doesn't work in our garden.
But it might one day.
It's like a shabby chic kind of look. It's like a Victorian, but it's not good. It's bad. It's bad.
It's not bad. It's so pretty. We do have it. We took it apart, when we bulldozed that garden space. Which, I missed the structure of that space, but the boxwoods needed to be replaced so bad.
It's falling apart too. That arbor.
Not.
It is. There's rust damage all over on it.
It makes it pretty.
It doesn't.
So many people were like, "Why don't you paint your arbor? Like, leave it alone.
Yeah.
It looks pretty with the rest."
Well, there you go.
Yeah, we still have it. It's behind the orchard fence in pieces.
Hopefully we can sell it or give it.
Yeah.
To someone.
Kay said, I love hellebores thanks to you, Laura, but they are pricey perennial. Are any of yours ready to be divided? If so, could you show us how? I'm not sure. I've never divided a hellebore before. Ours seed themselves all over the place. Now, when they do that, it does take them several years to establish and to actually start to bloom, and most of the time they won't come up true to the variety that you planted, but they're still a hellebore, and they'll still have pretty blooms, so I just let mine kind of seed themselves around. Hellebores don't typically like to have their roots disturbed, so I can't imagine they would love to be divided. Susan said, wondering how you deal with all the babies the hellebores drop and go to seed. I leave them. They're kind of a good ground cover, and then when they get a little bit bigger, I just kind of thin them out. I'm hoping that that whole area that I started in with the hellebores just kind of is a carpet one day. Babs in Boston said, how can you tell if your hydrangea blooms on new or old growth without waiting and seeing? I don't know that there is a way. There's some hydrangeas like oak leaves have a definite structural difference, and you can tell if you see them side by side. You can tell, but like between an arborescens and a panicle, I wouldn't be able to tell. Maybe on a macrophylla and serratus, though, I think they look fairly similar too.
Well, those are both old wood, aren't they?
Yeah, they're both old. Well, some of them are old and new. Some varieties, but you just, if you don't know what variety you have. Let me read further on because I see the word blue blooms in here. We bought our house in the fall of 2021. It has a hydrangea that looks original or close to original to the house. So around 23 years old and standard older looking blue blooms. So it's a macrophylla. It's horribly overgrown and only had one bloom last season, though we amended the soil and it has irrigation. If it's horribly overgrown, what I would do is I would cut it back fairly hard, forfeit the blooms for a season, fertilize it, let it recharge. See what happens next year. Okay, next video is seedling care, thinning, separating, and dealing with stretched seedlings and fertilizing. I think we just kind of talked about all of it. I was spending a day in the greenhouse because, again, it was another rainy day, but I needed to attend to my seedlings, so it was kind of perfect. Susan said, I've learned so much from you. Awesome. I'm happy to hear that. Can you cut back on grow light time as your seedlings get bigger? No. They need to have that amount of time. If you've got them inside, they still need to have the same amount of light as they got when they were young seedlings. And I wonder, like the plants in the greenhouse, I wonder how much better they would grow for us if we provided them with supplemental lighting. Because, all the stuff out there, there's no extra grow lights. It's all just natural light. And we've had so many gray days that I wonder like how much bigger those plants would be if I had them underneath grow lights like I have some of our seedlings in here. It might be worth one year, and I think I even thought about that last year, made a mental note that I forgot about maybe getting some lights rigged up in there.
Oh, yeah.
Because I do think it would be helpful. Things are growing well in there, so I can't complain, that's for sure, but it could be a little bit bigger.
Could you just hang some lights that you could take off later in the season? Mm-hmm. So they're not in the way? Yeah.
It would be worth it because usually my seedlings are in groups. Like I've got, one group on a table here and then I've got another group over here. So it'd be easy to fix the lights up, I think. Lucien said, I love your videos and look forward to watching them every day. I was wondering if you can show on video pinching the seedlings, which plants you pinch, when do I pinch, and how. We could do that. We have done that in the past. We showed you when I pinched back sweet peas and when I pinched back snapdragons at one point. It's been a while though. Worth a refresh. Peter said, where did you get the tongs? Those are from Gardener Supply. So they have the Growy seed starter trays, which are the 24 cell square cell trays. We've got a lot of those. And when we first started using those, they didn't have the tongs. So I used their little shovel to get things out. And then they came up with the tong idea. So awesome. It just slides in there and just pops those seedlings right out. Housewarman said, do Paul or Bethany help with planting/seed care? No, I do all of that. They've got all kinds of other things going on right now. Ozark View said, my question is it necessary to transplant all seedlings into regular potting soil? I'm running out of space and wasn't sure if it's okay to leave some in their seed starting cell packs. Most of the time it's okay. That's why it's kind of imperative not to start some of your seeds too early, because if you're starting them in, like, especially like 6 packs, which don't have a very big soil reservoir, you don't want to start them too early because they'll need to be bumped up in size. The plants will start to suffer because they're kind of like out of space. So yeah, start them at the appropriate time. Most of the time you can plant them right from their seed starting trays right outside. There's just a few of mine that I wanted to separate and pot up and grow on a little bit more. The geraniums in particular, I wanted to start them in their small trays, and then I wanted to pot them up and hopefully have some nice sized plants once we're ready to plant them outside. Stephanie said, is Biotone starter fertilizer too harsh to mix into soil when transferring the smaller plants to 4-inch pots? I don't think it's too harsh. I'm not sure that I would add a ton of it in there. I haven't experimented with that though. So it's something definitely worth trying. We have things in the greenhouse on a pretty strict fertilizer schedule. It's every Sunday is when I tackle all the fertilizing. So as long as they're getting nutrients that way, then I don't worry about, adding a granulated fertilizer into the soil. Once they are planted outside, that's when we add it in. Kara D87 said, will you please tell me the name of the yellow seed trays and where to find them? I know that they were introduced in an earlier video, but I don't remember which one. The XL seed, I've got a wrapper, hang on. Okay, so the kit that I opened up in that video, the yellow one, is the XL seed starting kit, which has a self-watering tray at the bottom, and then there are 12 cells that are larger, and they've got big slits up the sides so that they're really good for the roots, like air pruning. You can get them with the self-watering tray, or you can get them separately, like just the seed cells, whatever. And they come in different colors, clearly. So there's the blue, which I think is a pretty color, and then there's brown and the yellow, and I don't know what other colors. Maybe there's a green option. And those are from Gardener Supply. Kay said, I have a question. When you have seedlings that have stretched and you rebury them, do you rebury them up to their first pair of true leaves or up to their seed leaves? Thinking about it, I'm not sure that I've actually buried any leaves. So I just buried the stem portion, the long stem portion, up to the first set of whatever leaves are there.
So there you go.
So there you go. Yeah. So helpful. Boy, I should pay attention better when I'm doing stuff like that. D21 said, so much good information, still learning as I try to grow seedlings. Big question, if I don't get a lot of germination, maybe a third, can I still try and replant in those cells? Absolutely. Even though I won't be able to use the humidity dome, absolutely. As so long as you keep them moist, that's the whole thing. The humidity dome helps keep in a little bit of heat and moisture. But if you can provide the moisture, it might take them a tiny bit longer to germinate, but they still will. Like those paper pots that I did in the greenhouse, germination was beautiful on those. And I think it's possible those plants that don't have a humidity dome might be a little bit stronger for it. Last video from this week was setting up a super cute greenhouse for my sister-in-law in her garden. We're transforming a spot in her garden that I'm so excited about. So she's got a super long driveway that fits like 8 cars in just the driveway. But then there's a spot where you can turn off from the driveway, and it's very long, and it was meant for an RV. But she doesn't have an RV and does not have plans to have one. So to utilize some of that space, because it gets afternoon sun for a vegetable garden, it's just going to be such a perfect way, I think, to I don't know, she's super into growing things and gardening, and she's excited for that kind of space. So we've been planning this for a little while, and it was so fun because we just told her, like, pick out stuff that you like. Just make a list of stuff that you like, and let's see what we can put together for you in that space. So we started with the 5 North Pole arborvitaes, which was your suggestion, and I think that was good.
I'm always suggesting the arbs.
Yeah.
Arbs everywhere.
Well, an evergreen backdrop, so that one day when they're big, you can look through that greenhouse and you won't see a vinyl fence. You will see an evergreen backdrop. That will look really nice. And then Paul and I put together the 8-foot hexagon. It's a canopia. Is that how you say it?
Canopia,
by
maybe?
Palram Hexagon Greenhouse.
Some Oasis was in there too.
Oasis. It's got a really long name. Anyway, it took the 2 of us all day. Well, almost all day. I think we got there at about 10, and we were done at about 4:30. We put that together, and that was the first step of that garden space. We were actually planning on going back today to do raised beds, but it's just raining, and I don't know, maybe we'll wait to do that until tomorrow. But anyway, there weren't a lot of questions on this particular video because there was a giveaway attached to it. Gardener Supply, which I think the giveaway is still open.
Yeah.
At this point.
It'll run 1 week.
1 week. Okay, so if you haven't left a comment below that video, go to the video on YouTube. I know, and I stated this in the video, that the winners will be picked from the comment section in the YouTube comment section, not on Facebook. There's still a bunch of comments on Facebook, but we don't pick from those. There's too much scam stuff that goes on Facebook. Anyway, you put a comment below the video of what you would spend the $500 gift card, which is what the giveaway is for, what you would buy from Gardener Supply. So anyway, there wasn't a lot of questions, but there was a lot of excited, like, I would buy this. And it was so fun. I read through some of them this morning. Tia said, is the giveaway only for American viewers?
It's technically for anyone. Here's the deal, is that Gardener Supply can only send the stuff to the 48 states. So like if you get a gift card to Gardener Supply, you know, like they can ship to the 48 states. So if you want to win
in the States? Yeah.
If you know somebody you could give it to, or I know some people in Canada that live, you know, low enough, they ship things into the States and then just go pick it up and bring it back. Or, you know, there's like businesses that do that. So that's the deal. They can only ship to the 48 states, but technically anybody can enter. Yeah.
Rosa said, good morning, Laura and Garden Answer peeps. I love the greenhouse. It's compact enough to place in a smaller garden, which that's another thing I'm excited about, is showing some smaller gardens. We've got another project planned that's going to involve some rock work, and it's very small. And I think that's going to be a fun one to watch transform. It's completely blank slate as well. Where was I? Would it be recommended to have it set up in gravel, or is grass fine? Ooh, I would say grass would be a little bit of a mess because your grass isn't going to stay nice inside of it.
Yeah.
I would clear the spot, level it, put some gravel down. I personally would put landscape fabric down and then gravel down. That's what we did in our greenhouse, and I'm so thankful we did that. Used DeWitt Pro. That's the only brand to use of landscape fabric. And we did that also in our raised bed vegetable garden area. And it's really, really helped with weed control. And we only put landscape fabric in so the greenhouse, vegetable garden, just the pathways. It's not below our raised beds. And then along our line, because we had bindweed, a huge bindweed problem. I think and then the box, there's one side of the boxwood hedge in Versailles that we put landscape fabric because it also has a bindweed problem. You can't spray it because you kill your boxwoods.
Right.
The only way to do it is to suppress it, and it's worked. Charlene said, question related to the arbs. We just bought and are in the process of planting a row of Moonglow Junipers along our white vinyl fence. It seems you might prefer arborvitaes over junipers for hedges. I don't. I like them both. You prefer arbs.
Well, junipers tend to get wider, don't they?
Well, you know, you are correct. You know, you can plant like a Spartan or something like that that's supposed to get 5 to 6 feet wide, and we've seen them get 15 feet wide. Junipers in our area, they love their lives here, so they tend to always get bigger than the tag state they're going to get.
Whereas arbs don't. Arbs stay within pretty much what the tag says.
Yeah, they are more finicky, for sure. Arbs are. They require a ton more water than junipers do. They do look more lush as well. They smell better. They look more lush. Junipers tend to have a drier appearance. I do still like junipers, though, because they are so easy to grow here in our area. So I think Moonglows will be absolutely beautiful up against your fence. S. Murphy said, can we see more Paul? Not a question, a statement. You know, Paul is really, really nice to let us put cameras up. I know that he's more comfortable with it, I think, now. But it was kind of like me, too. I was not comfortable with it in the beginning, and neither was my mom. You know, when she started to come do projects with me or go shopping, I'd have to tell her, Mom, you look worried. Yeah. Quit looking so worried. She's like, well, I kind of am. Yeah. You know, and you just kind of get more used to it, more comfortable. And he's just game to do projects and have the camera up. And yeah, we're really thankful. Gardening Junkie said, can you safely leave a space heater on all night in a greenhouse? I think I would be too worried to go to sleep like that. Do you know what the temperature difference is without a space heater from the outdoors? Oh boy. You know, I run a small space heater in two. I run one in the root cellar because we don't have a heater in the root cellar. We have an air conditioning unit that will kick on in the summertime when you set it to, you know, whatever temperature you want it to stay at. But in the wintertime, it will get below freezing if it gets really cold outside. So I have one that has a thermostat, a little heater that will just kick on if it gets below like 35 or 34. I think I have it set to 34.
You just don't want it to freeze in there.
Right. I just don't want it to freeze. I just want it to take the edge off. So there are ones you can buy, and I don't think they're any more expensive than, like, they're just, you can buy them at Walmart or Home Depot or whatever. And it's like this big. And so I'll hear it sometimes just like kick on for a few minutes, and it just takes the edge off the temperature, and then it'll kick off. And then we bought a radiant heater for the Hartley that's also on the thermostat, and it does the same thing. And I put it on the other end. We do have a heater in the Hartley, but it's a big glass structure, and it's very hard to maintain heat on both sides. And I was starting seeds on the far side away from the heater. So we had that radiant heater running just to keep it from not freezing. It doesn't run all the time. It's not there to heat the whole structure. It was just pushed close to my seedlings to keep them warm enough. Raquel said, do you ever design spaces for other people? No. Largely no. I mean, we're working on these 2 small garden space projects this year, but I don't enjoy that kind of work at all. I barely design my own garden space. And it was the number one reason and motivator to keep going with Garden Answer in the beginning. I was still working at the garden center at the time when we started doing this. Of course, we both worked full-time jobs for 2 years until we actually quit our jobs and did this full-time. And I remember my mom asking me down at the garden center, because I was kind of required to do plants because it does help sell plants. And she's like, what's your goal? I'm like, to say no, to never have to do a landscape plan for somebody else ever again. That is my number one motivator. I just don't like it. Summer of Stacy said, what kind of shelves work with the hexagonal shape? Well, the walls are pretty wide. I don't know, like the walls are 5 feet.
Well, we have some shelving.
Yeah, we're going to put some stuff in there so you can kind of get an idea, but you can put shelves up against the walls. Yeah.
You just kind of like back them up against each of the... It's the hexagon shape probably isn't like the most efficient for space, because you are going to have like a little bit of like a pie, like a wedge shaped hole where the shelves kind of touch. So, but it's, if you like the look of it, then... I
love the roof of it.
Yeah, I think it's a cool design for
when you're driving in the neighborhood and you can kind of see over the fences of the other gardens to that, you can see the roof shape, and it looks so cute. And last question, Stephanie said, just wondering, when I plant trees or plants, I always put water in the hole before I plant it in. Is this no good? No, that's great. You can do that. We sometimes do, we sometimes don't.
Yeah.
It's like not a standard practice of ours, but it could be.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to really matter either way. Like we've had, our stuff takes off whether we do. Because sometimes like when we're planting trees, we'll fill up the hole with water. But other times the problem with that is that if you don't dig deep enough, it can be weird when you fill up the hole with water and then you need to either add more soil or, God forbid, take more soil out after you've just filled it with water.
Especially when you're planting bigger things that are heavy, getting that root ball, dragging it back out is so much work.
Yeah, maybe the best thing to do is like get your root ball in the hole to where you feel like you're comfortable with the level, and then fill it up with water, and then backfill with soil. It's
also harder to backfill when you have a hole full of water too. I mean, you really need to let it soak in, I guess, to the root ball or whatever, and then go back and pack it full of soil, because oftentimes you're like packing soil in and water's just like coming up around it, and it's really hard. And you guys, that is it for today's recap video. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys are having a great day. Have a great week, and we will see you in the next one.